Hello?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing? What do you want to talk about?
I'll talk about it all. I'm an independent constitutionalist, so let's get rolling.
All
How
right,
about it?
let's hear it.
I'm the
Where do
one.
you want
I'm
to
the
start
one.
with?
Let's start with Medicare for all. How do you propose that type of system, universal health care, won't incentivize the sick, lame, and lazy not to work to contribute?
So I think that let's think of yourself. I mean, maybe you're separating yourself, but if you had your health insurance covered, you would still have a job, you would still work, you would still be a productive member of society, right?
Correct.
Oh, awesome. And I think that that's true for the vast majority of people. I think that we shouldn't allow.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you there because there's already people who don't.
Well, but
You
the
understand what I'm saying?
what I would point to
And we
though
also
is
have a system. I work for a government agency, and we also have a system that provides for uh, coverage for people who, under federal law, can't get certain things, but can get it under state laws.
no, yeah, definitely. I
And
definitely think that there are times where state programs will pick up things that the federal government has left behind.
yeah, and the way that works is the federal government will delegate funds to each state, but then the state repatriates that money so they can use it under their own laws to still give it to people who shouldn't get it. So, but I mean, there's still you still can't counteract those who don't work not paying into the system because there will be people who utilize a system that other people are paying for, and I believe that's why people don't want that type of system is because they don't want to pay for others
So
that don't contribute.
I definitely want to get at this idea of, because what we're talking about is should people get this kind of amorphous what they deserve? You know what I mean? What someone deserves mean? So I personally believe that healthcare is something that should be available to everyone. If you've never worked a day in your life, if you've worked your entire life, I think that everyone, as just a bare minimum, everyone in society should have access to healthcare. And I think that we see in other countries.
Access, yes.
Oh, when I say access, I mean
Access,
they should
yes.
have fully coverage. When I say access, I mean that they should be able to go get healthcare without at risk of going medically bankrupt. Not just you can purchase them, because that doesn't really mean access for giant portions of the population. And so I think that we see in countries that have universal healthcare programs, they actually, what do they see? They actually have higher social mobility than we do here in the U.S. Now I don't think it's just because of their universal healthcare systems, but I definitely think it's a contributing factor.
Well, I have a lot of friends in Canada who talk about their universal health care system where basic care is covered, but the more major things they can't have access to that they have to get approval for.
I definitely don't think Canada's system is perfect, but I think if we could just look at perceptions of healthcare in Canada versus the United States, Canadians are, or by a pretty sizable amount, happier with their healthcare system.
I, I, I can only go by personal experience on that. I can't talk broadly because I mean I only speak to those people that I know, and they say it's not the best because they can't get the greater things that they need under a universal health care
Well, it's not that they
because
it's not
there's a
that they can't
baseline.
get it. It's because that there's more people have access to it, and so this is a common concept. The idea
And they can't afford it.
the idea of rationing care. You know what I mean? A universal healthcare system,
Yeah.
because everyone has healthcare, they're going to ration care. Well, we also ration care here in the United States. We just ration it in a different way. We ration it based on how wealthy you are. If you're wealthy, you don't have to wait in line at all. You can go get whatever procedure you want right away. Jeff Bezos can get whatever procedure he wanted as soon as he wanted it. If you're poor in the U.S., you're getting rationed for healthcare. You're not going to get. We do have programs like Medicaid that thankfully help people like that, but they definitely don't cover everybody. And so I think that every system is going to have some form or another of rationing, and Canada has their own way of doing it. And I think that their form of rationing is preferable to the way that we do it here in the U.S.
So you're okay with the working class paying for the non-working class,
I think that as a society, we should all chip in communally so that we can all be afforded the basic right of healthcare.
but all won't. In
I think that,
reality, all won't.
and I think that there are systems, within the current system. I think that there are people that exploit things. I think that there are, or maybe exploits the wrong word, but there are people that receive benefits maybe unfairly. So right now, the Walton, they're the common talking point because they're so exorbitantly wealthy and they inherited all of their wealth. The Waltons inherited their current fortune, and they're wealthier than the bottom 40% of American. Now, I don't think anybody truly believes that the Walton children who inherited their wealth worked harder than the bottom 40% of Americans. And so you could also make the case that, okay, they've exploited the capitalist system. And so if we're talking about, what system would make resources divided up more fairly, I think a system that allocates, so that everybody has healthcare would be more fair than a system where people inherit billions.
Well, the Constitution doesn't cover health care.
It doesn't.
It just says freedom of access to things is what that basically covers. So I can agree with you on the access part. I can't agree on the universal health care because there's nothing free in this world, and the takers will keep taking whether they contribute or not.
Of course, when we say free, we just mean free at the point of service. Just like when you go drive on a road, you don't have to pay to go drive on your road.
We're talking about a political talking point here where they say free, universal health care, because it would be free to those who don't contribute. You understand what I'm saying?
It would be free while you use it. That's like, just like public schools. When you send your kid to a public school, you don't pay for it. It's paid through taxes.
Yeah, but it's still free for those who aren't contributing. You understand what I'm saying?
But I'm
the
just
freeloaders.
clarifying that when we say free, we mean free at the point of service. That's all I was referring to.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying I believe that a lot of people are not. I can't speak for everyone, of course, but a lot of people feel that that's why they don't want to contribute to a universal health care is because of those who don't contribute. So if I work for my money, why should I pay for someone else's health care?
I think it's more about, well, frankly, I think that it is good to foster a mentality where we do care about the people around us. You know what I mean? Where we do care about the people in our community, the people in our country. I definitely think that, and I'm not saying that you don't, but I think that, that's part of it. We should, care about whether the people around us have, health care. And I think that a good way to foster that mentality, that's definitely something that they've achieved, not perfectly, but in countries like Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and they have these social programs where, while they know that there are people that, aren't going to work, there are some people that just aren't going to work. I'll never deny that. But those people should still have access to basic rights like healthcare, housing, food. I don't think that they should starve just because they're.
See, you just said another key phrase: basic rights.
Yeah,
you're talking about basic human rights. There's a difference. Basic rights under the Constitution is not the same as basic, human rights. You're talking the difference between sympathy versus law.
I completely recognize that, like, our current system doesn't recognize those things as rights. But I'm saying that they should, and frankly, depending on the country, they might not, like, within their constitution recognize it as a right, but they effectively do because everybody has access to those things.
I understand. I mean, I agree with access. Like I said, I don't disagree with you there. I agree with access. But I'm going to skip over the end of wars because I'm a retired veteran. Okay, so I won't even go there on that topic. But as far as the pro-immigration, I'm like the other guy. I believe in legal immigration. So you know what I mean? And
did you oppose
as long as if there's anything passed by our legislature that makes it easier or harder to immigrate, I will agree with, because that's the law. You understand what I mean? I'm looking at that baseline by the Constitution. So if anything,
so this is interesting.
I have no problem with people legally immigrating here. I've fought alongside legal immigrants. You understand? I fought alongside Filipinos who gained their immigration status by serving.
So then let me ask you this. Would you support some sort of mass amnesty to allow the people who are currently here that are undocumented to be recognized as? So why would you not? Because that would be a legal process to give these people legal residency.
Because the initial act was unlawful, whether it's a civil or a criminal. It doesn't matter if it's just a civil.
Just because somebody has done something that's against the law, you know what I mean? Who hasn't sped before, who hasn't jaywalked before. People break laws, and especially if the law is, I think, fundamentally broken. I think our immigration system has a lot of problems with it. And so I think letting those people have a chance to come in and make this country better and have their legal residency so they're not at risk of being deported, I think that would make our country stronger.
I don't think our government will ever go for that, though. I mean, not as far as amnesty. I'm talking about all of them, because our system also exploits them. You got corporations that employ illegal immigrants, pay them under the table, and especially in the agriculture field, where like you got groups of immigrants being paid by the field, not paid by the hour under federal labor laws, and all those issues. You're talking about a very complex thing here when we're talking about immigration, but we do have a lot of people who come here on work visas and repatriate that money back to Mexico or whatever country they came from. So that's money out of our economy going to other countries.
So there's a couple things to touch on there. One is actually, I think that maybe you weren't expecting, but I actually agree. I think it's horrible when undocumented immigrants don't receive the same labor protections that U.S. citizens have. But that's why I'm so in favor of amnesty, so that they are protected by our laws and so that they aren't taken advantage of. And so I definitely do agree that there's a lot of exploitation.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on that because, like I said, if they didn't come here legally to start with, they don't belong here.
So I think but define belong. I mean, because these are people who have done quite a bit to try and live in this country.
How about this? We are a sovereign nation. If you give up that sovereignty, we don't have borders.
We don't cease to be a sovereign nation if we allow people into the country. That's not really what makes a sovereign nation.
No, the sovereignty is at the border. You understand that, right?
Well, that's not really what like sovereign. I mean, in one like very specific dynamic, I guess I've heard people define that as being like not a sovereign nation, but there's still so many. I mean, we would still have control over the laws within the geographical area that is the United States. That's
correct. And one of those laws is and a lot of those laws require you to come here legally.
No, but that's the thing. So I want to go back to the point of being belong. You know what I mean? Because these are people who have done an enormous amount to come to this country. You know what I mean? It's not easy to come here undocumented. I hope you would at least agree with that. Now, I won't point to you, but I'll point to myself. I did nothing to be here. I was just born here. I did absolutely nothing. Yet somehow I am granted this privilege that these other people shouldn't have access to. I think that's fundamentally unfair, and I think that they belong here just as much as I do. I don't think that just because I was born on one side of the arbitrary line doesn't mean I have any special right to live here. A special right to these rights that I think other people.
The Constitution gives you those birthrights.
But I think that the
Constitution gives you those birthrights.
I don't disagree that the Constitution does, is what effectively gives us, what we consider to be rights in the U.S. But I'm saying that we should, the Constitution says all people, you know what I mean? It actually says all men specifically. But, the Constitution theoretically is supposed to apply to all people.
Citizens.
So, but if we want to get into the fundamental premise of the Constitution, the idea that, these are...
Well, because I understand, I know exactly what you're talking about, where everybody gets their day in court.
Well, of course. I mean, that was definitely one of the areas that we could have gone down, because, yes, a lot of people that come here that are undocumented, they don't have the due process that everyone is supposed to have access to.
Yeah.
That's also a problem at things like Guantanamo Bay.
Actually, they do, because under catch and release, that is what that's about. They get released until their due process date.
It's a little more complicated than that, but we also have things like Title 42, where Biden is currently using it to expel people before they have their asylum hearing. And that's definitely fundamentally goes against the idea of due process.
Yeah, and the vice president saying, "Don't come."
yeah, I don't think that was Kamala Harris's best moment. I definitely disagree with her there.
Yeah, let's talk about tax the rich real quick. So I want to keep it moving because I know you got other people who probably want to get in here and talk to you.
Yeah, of course.
But if we're going to talk about tax the rich, you do realize that a lot of money that was overseas was repatriated back to the States when the tax rate was cut, correct?
So I think that there is this argument that, okay, if we cut our taxes, let's cut them even further then, so people will use our country as a tax haven. I don't think that makes our country stronger. I think that, just saying that foreign capital, I guess what was at one point foreign capital, coming into the country so that it can be in the pockets of a billionaire in their bank account here, I don't think that benefits us in the same way that, taxing corporations more, taxing billionaires more, and then using that money on social programs would.
Well, I understand, but the secret of the rich is that they use tax shelters and overseas banking to hide their wealth.
I completely agree.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's politicians alike. That's politicians alike in this country.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's nothing but shell corporation after shell corporation. That's why one can take the heat for something and then go bankrupt when really it's the one that owns them that was the one who caused the issue. But if we tax the rich, you talk about trickle-down economics. That term came out first under Reagan, and I remember that because I was alive then. You can tell I'm a little bit older. But There was definitely a difference between the trickle down economics of Reagan and the trickle down economics they were talking about under Trump, because under Reagan only the rich got the tax cut, and that didn't come down to anybody. But they cut it across the board, and I don't know
Are you
if
talking
people
about
actually
with Trump?
understand how.
With Trump that they cut it? Is that your claim that Trump cut it across the
Yeah,
board?
with Trump they did every bracket, and they readjusted the brackets. I know how it worked, and I know under Reagan there was no bracket change, but there was a cut at the top, and it was like making the rich richer, and that's what everybody was upset about under Reagan.
But I think
But
to
under
get
Trump,
back to Trump, though, we saw the vast majority of the benefits from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act went to the top 1% and went to large corporations. Now, while I think the medium tax cut for the median American was around $800, which isn't nothing. $800 can definitely help out a lot of Americans. Overwhelmingly, the benefits went to the top.
no, I don't disagree, because that's the way our tax system is built. You understand what I'm saying? If everybody knows how it works, you don't get taxed at a specific rate. A certain amount of your dollars gets taxed at each rate.
No,
And
but that's
the
why I
problem
think
is that tax
we should
rate.
change that. We should, or not change that, but we should
I
raise
do.
those
I
taxes.
agree with you. Actually, I agree with you. Actually, I agree with you on that. I agree with you that tax structure needs to change.
Yeah, now
Because
when you say change though, because change could mean two things. Do you think it should change in the way that we
I
raise
understand
it,
you're thinking the negative. I'm with you on the positive.
Yeah.
I believe in the percentage. I believe in the percentage versus the brackets, and we need to lean more towards the percentage to make sure that money gets repatriated the way it needs to for the country.
Interesting. Well,
And
is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I don't know about Trump being a disaster. My let's remember, I'm an independent constitutionalist. I vote either way, because I voted for Obama. You know what I mean? I voted for Trump, but I take it on issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I know that for that issue alone, my personal way of life was better under Trump. You understand what I mean? I can't speak for the country. I can only speak for myself. My investments went up. My wages went up. My cost of living was lower. We can talk about fuel prices. I know that's probably a big topic for everybody in your live right now.
Yeah, we could definitely
what people,
touch on fuel prices.
Well, because everybody says that the president has nothing to do with fuel prices, and that's not true.
Well, they don't have a whole lot directly to do with fuel prices. That's my claim.
But executive policies directly affect energy independence in this country. When we rely on OPEC, foreign oil, more than we're relying on our own production, that's when prices go up. And that's what we're seeing right now.
So I think that what we're seeing right now is just because oil prices plummeted because of COVID, and they've started to rebound as a result. I mean, we saw diesel prices.
I'm not even going to get started on the COVID shelter that's being used as an excuse for everything that's occurring.
Well, no, not as an excuse. I mean, oil prices plummeted
prior to Biden taking office. We were exporting more than we were importing from OPEC. Now that Biden's taken over, some of those executive orders that he reversed and had some of his administrative agencies under the executive branch have now put us back under OPEC, and OPEC sets those prices, not our country.
I want to address, like I said, people can look at what U.S. gas prices. I don't know what specific month they were at their lowest, but they started to go back up under Donald Trump. And this isn't due to some massive change in policy. This is because we saw people were traveling again, people were flying more, people were driving more, and we saw oil prices start to rebound. You saw this phenomenon. I think if you look at from August to January 1st, you'd see oil prices were already going back up under Donald Trump of 2020. But then to go back to what you were saying about your wages and stuff. That's why I definitely, try to stay away from anecdotes, because you can, right there, you can point to the fact that your investments went up. But, a new study came out recently. The wealthiest 10% of Americans own 89% of all stocks. 56% of Americans, are the people who own stock. The other 44% own no stock at all. So I definitely think that, when we talk about things like stock markets hitting record highs, it's important to talk about, well, that may be benefiting some people, but, who else is it benefiting? The economy might be good for some people. It might not be good for other people. So I definitely think we have to look at things holistically. We know that 2 million people lost their health insurance under Donald Trump. That's definitely something we can talk about. They're not on the stream.
Okay, if you're going to say that, hold on. If you're going to say that, you got to talk about how they expanded Medicare prior to that to include those 2 million.
No, wait. I want to clarify that. So you're saying that Trump expanded Medicare to include those 2 million?
No.
No, okay. I wanted to make sure
that happened under.
No.
That happened under that crazy title Obamacare.
Well,
the affordable. Which is actually the Affordable Care Act. I don't do these anagrams.
We had the Medicaid expansion.
Under the affordable. Yes, you had a Medicaid expansion and Medicare expansion under the Affordable Care Act that included those 2 million people. So then, when it was reversed,
2 million people lost their health care, I think that was a bad thing.
Lost their health care. Yes. Well, but you're talking about 2 million people who didn't have it to begin with. And then until someone expanded it, which was found to be unconstitutional in the Supreme Court, and it got taken back away.
That's not you're referring to the individual mandate. Medicaid has not been found to be unconstitutional. That's the individual.
No, not all of it. Not all of it, but a lot of the policies have been through the Supreme Court by now. There are a couple of them, but the Supreme Court only hears 100 cases per year, and they get to pick them. So
I just want to address though that saying, okay, Obama, it was because of the ACA that these people got health care, and then Trump got rid of the ACA, or at least that portion of the ACA that cost those 2 million people their health care. I don't know if that's the strongest argument for Trump. Like, okay, yeah, Obama did help these people get insured, and then it went away. And
I'm not here to defend Trump. We're here to talk about the issues.
Sure, and I think
based on the issues themselves.
2 million people, I think, losing their health care, I think is a bad thing. You know what I mean? You can say they didn't have health care before, but that's why I think
I don't disagree that people without health care is a sad thing, and they don't deserve some type of help. Okay, we're talking about finances here, and if you want to talk about health care, we can talk about the prescription drug prices that big old conglomerate there, because the prescription drug prices in 2020 were dropping. Okay,
but
now
you can finish.
Hold on. Now, after Biden took office, he reversed one of those executive orders. Okay, now not only did my own copays for prescriptions go back up, they practically doubled to what they were pre the drop.
Let's talk about the holistically. So
when you're talking
under
about
the
people
Trump
in this
administration,
country,
what did we see happen to pharmaceutical drug prices holistically under the 4 years of Trump?
They went up slightly.
It was a net increase of pharmaceutical drug prices. But that's why I think that policies like a Medicare for All system, where we're able to negotiate pharmaceutical drug prices with pharmaceutical companies, because right now Medicare isn't able to negotiate those prices, despite the overwhelming majority of Americans support Medicare being able to negotiate those prices. That would put a massive downward pressure on pharmaceutical drugs. But currently that's not allowed to. And I think that there are policies that are being pushed for right now. That's in the reconciliation bill that's being discussed in Congress. Now people like Joe Manchin might try to get it out of there. But I think that there are things that are being pushed for right now by this administration. Now, I don't think they're going far enough, but to move down the cost of those drugs.
Well, what they need is competition. And what I mean by that is lobbyists pay these politicians to keep certain medical availabilities in certain areas. Like the state I live in, on the east you have so many providers, and on the west of this state you have so many providers, and you can't use that service in either half. So no, go on. So giving people the ability, the access you talk about to shop for medical services could bring down the cost if people had access to all.
So I think that the biggest problem with that is that, like, one of the things with healthcare is it's very geographically oriented. You know what I mean?
They made it geographic. Made it geographically oriented.
At a fundamental level, it is going to be at least somewhat geographically oriented. I mean, if we can talk about something basic, like you break your leg, you're not choosing between the hospital that's, from your right next to your house and the hospital that's 2 states over. You know what I mean? And now maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but like for the most part, healthcare is going to be very geographically dependent, and you're not going to have just the same ability. Even if it was fully privatized, you just wouldn't have the same ability to shop around like you might be for something like what kind of peanut butter you buy. You know what I mean? I think that there are just certain dynamics with healthcare that make it much less applicable to the market systems than something like video games.
Yeah, I just think if the only way to drive down prices is competition. And the only way you get competition is to eliminate the geographical oddities that you're talking about. That a person from California can't get the same insurance I can because of where they live.
But a part of that, a giant part of that though has to do with a lot of insurance companies just don't want to sell insurance across state lines because they don't know the markets as well. And this is a phenomenon that we've seen.
But that's what I'm talking about. If we open that up, if politicians would open that up, then they would be forced to bring down their costs to compete.
No.
You understand?
That's quite to the contrary because they don't have to sell across state lines if they don't want to. Because you're not advocating
right now they don't because that's the way the system is gamed. You understand what I mean?
But historically, when these companies have been allowed to sell across state lines, the vast majority of them choose not to because they're comfortable in their own markets. They're comfortable with the profits that they're currently making. Obviously, they want to see their profits go up, but the profits aren't going to go up if they start doing this. The market lends itself to this oligopic type system where there are a lot of large companies because insurance is going to have large economies of scale because as more people are paying in, they're paying out to less people. They're going to be more profitable as a result.
Right. To dumb it down, they only want to fish in certain ponds.
That's not a bad way of putting it. Yeah.
I get it. You understand? You're not talking to a dummy here, okay? I mean, I get it, but my point is because of the lobbyists is why, and because of politicians who don't have a backbone, is why we have these types of systems where there is no competition, because they're allowed to stay in their little fishing pond. You know what I mean?
I think corruption might be a good spot for us to call it good on.
That's a great thing to say because that's from the top down, brother.
We both agree with that.
From the top down.
All right, this has been a great conversation. Thank you.
Hey, I'm going to give you a chance to speak to somebody else, but it was great speaking with you. I mean, being an independent constitutionalist, I can agree on some parts and I can disagree on some. But like I said, I take it issue by issue.
Yeah, of course. Well, you have a great day.
You have a great day, all right?
Thank you.
Yep, you too.